kind of one of my final goals as a professional helicopter pilot is to be really not only doing it, but doing it efficiently, doing it safely, teaching the next generation every single step of my career. If I haven't done it well and taught it to somebody else, I haven't actually accomplished what I'm trying to do. So that's where I'm at right now. That's what I want to get to.
So in Afghanistan, when you're doing the DoD contracting in Afghanistan, any runs, days, flights that stand out from the others?
Yeah, I got a 7.62 round through my bubble window.
What?
Yeah.
Dang.
Passed about 12 inches from my head.
Jesus.
Yep. So,
just through the glass?
Yeah, we were flying a route. We had our green air routes, from one place to another. And for some reason on this day, we're like, well, let's just cut this corner here. Let's go over this other ridge top, and en route, I happen to be flying, which thank God I'm sitting in the right seat. I'm a co-pilot, but I happen to be flying. So I'm sitting up in a good posture, for flying. And shot hits the bubble window. It basically sprays plexiglass onto the dashboard. And the first thought in my mind was I thought the cabin crew member in the back just threw sand up into the cockpit.
Oh, because there's like the debris everywhere and obviously some air's flying around.
Yeah, and I was like, why would he throw sand up here? It seems super random, He's not like a crazy person.
Is this a weird prank?
Yeah, it's a weird prank. I'm like, what is going on? And then the command pilot happened to look over and see the entrance and exit hole in the bubble window. And he took the controls, we nosed over and got to our destination and shut down. And because we had to make sure that it didn't hit the blades,
Right.
I think we probably would have known if it hit the blades, while we were in the air,
or something. But no other bullet holes on the rest of the aircraft, nothing on the belly. So just took a shot.
Yep, just a pop shot. Yep. That's one that stands out. There's other ones as well. Afghanistan, again, it was just a really rewarding experience for me to go full circle like that and go back to Afghanistan. I still had friends in Ranger Battalion that were currently there. I transported some of them.
Oh, nice.
So it's super rewarding because it's like, oh, that's Murtis up there flying the thing. Like, what the hell?
That's pretty cool. That's super cool.
I got to meet up with quite a few friends and stuff back up there. Yep.
Nice. And then 2020, you were stuck there for a while. You came back. Were you done with DoD contracting in Colombia, or like where was your head at coming back from 6 months?
Yeah. So I stayed. It was about I think it was about 4.5 months, maybe 5 months, whatever it was. It was. I stayed. I kept doing it for until 2021, until like literally the wheels fell off and we pulled out of Afghanistan. Yeah, I continued doing it, which looking back on it, I wouldn't do it. Like if they asked me to do it today, I probably wouldn't do it because during that time it was all the COVID restrictions and stuff. So every time we or went overseas to go work, we had to spend 2 weeks in solitary confinement in a hotel before we could, and we would do that in Dubai. And those were just weird times, man. Like I did that 3 times. So about a month and a half of my life cumulative was spent just in hotels, completely solitary confinement. Yeah. Super weird times. Everybody had a weird time during COVID, but I definitely think that I had a pretty weird time.
Unique. And is that 2 weeks confinement on your way in and out of country?
Just on your way in.
Interesting.
Yep. They wanted you to confine yourself at home when you got home. Who else could do that?
No one did that at all.
So again, I probably wouldn't do it, if something like that were to happen again. I think a lot of people feel that way with a lot of different things with COVID and stuff. But one thing that I took advantage of during that time, so I knew I had 2 weeks of just sitting there. So at that time I had 6 months left on my GI Bill. So I enrolled into a master's program through Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, their worldwide campus. Nice. And I never finished the master's program. I did 6 months of classes though. I think I knocked out about 4 or 5, but I did entire master's courses sitting in that hotel room.
By yourself?
Sometimes 2 of them at a time.
Dang.
And I did a dissertation. I wrote, a scholarly report that never got published or anything, but I was proud of it. At least it gave me something to do.
Yeah, not literally just sitting there staring out the window or watching Dubai TV.
Well, and it kind of propelled a little bit of like, I write and I read a lot, now kind of on my free time or whatever. So doing that was helpful because I still like to do that. It's a good stress reliever and stuff for me. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, that's a lot about Afghanistan. After Afghanistan was over, and they did the withdrawal. Actually, one last note I would make about that is they should have just kept Bagram because we had 13 aircraft over there. We could have moved so many people from Kabul to Bagram.
Just rather than the clusterfuck.
Total airlift. Yeah, we could have done a total airlift, brought everybody to Bagram, and then we could have pieced out after that. So that's just one thing that always sticks on my mind. But yeah, so anyway, after the wheels fell off in Afghanistan, I decided to depart the company. I knew there wasn't going to be any work like anytime soon, So I got a job flying power line construction in California,
Dang.
Which again, it was just a new hill to climb. That was my first real experience. I cut my teeth with long line in Afghanistan, flying the 107. But going out to California is when I really had to cut my teeth and really learn precision long line abilities,
So with the alignment, were you like cutting branches? I know you had a person that you would drop in, but were you also doing like where they're dangling the chainsaw and cutting lines and stuff like that?
No hella saw. It's a pretty interesting gig. I've got some friends that have done some hella saw work and stuff. And shout out to those guys. They're pretty badass. But,
yeah, for real.
No, I just did the human external cargo and power line construction. It's all light ship stuff. So I was back in a 407. Which I flew that in the Gulf. So familiar territory for me. But now flying it in a utility purpose. Right. So I only did it for a summer. It was a little bit of a rinky-dink operation, a real small one. But they were exclusive, basically, use for PG&E out there in California. Okay. So, and that also included a lot of patrols, so power line patrols and stuff. You guys are very familiar with California, I'm sure, and all the fires that PG&E has been responsible for over the years. They take it seriously. They use helicopters for everything, checking the lines, all the distro lines and all that stuff. So I did a lot of that, and then I did a lot of training and practice to then get into the construction side of it.
Damn.
So, and I didn't make it to all the different levels of the construction side because I only stayed there for that one season.
Yeah.
But I got into, I did my short haul flight evaluation, and then I did, a couple months of actual human external cargo. So
damn.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
We blew right past the Gulf. Is there anything on offshore that you wanted to hit on?
The only thing I would say about the offshore, it was a great experience because it taught you how to fly in some pretty adverse weather environments. They get a lot of fog, a lot of storms, stuff like that. So that's basically all I would say. All of that stuff is good for just professional development and stuff. So interviewing with them, working with the company, was a really big corporation, out there, the helicopter service out there, PHI. So all that was good, the interview process, and then just doing the job. I didn't have too many moments, probably a couple moments of some adverse weather and just making those decisions, as a single pilot, when to turn around, when to keep going.
Yeah.
I made it, about 5 miles from a platform, which was 90 miles offshore, and I had to turn around, And the guys on the radio was like, "Oh, it's fine. Come on in." It's not fine. They just want to get home.
Exactly. That's honestly, that's a hard call for a lot of pilots to make. So after I got out, I did avionics here for private planes.
Okay.
And just a lot of the mishaps you see are, pilots are like, the weather's not that bad, or I could go this route, and it's the get-there-itis is what my former boss used to call it, and it gets a lot of people in trouble. So I can't imagine offshore with the storms down in the Gulf, hurricane season, wind and stuff like that, making that call.
Yep. It's important to do. You know, I've had friends that have lost their lives flying helicopters. You know, it's just going to happen in that industry. But one of them that stands out in particular, and I won't say any names, but a life flight aircraft. And when I was doing that master's program, I actually did a report on so I looked up all the NTSB reports and all the flight track and stuff just to really learn about this incident. You know, somebody that I knew. They turned around 3 times. And then on the 3rd time, they're like trying to go for it again. They crashed. Crashed and died. Yeah.
Dang.
So, and you know, through college and through writing and stuff, I've really broken it. And especially when I did my dissertation, I talked a lot about stress and fatigue management in aviation. And one thing that a lot of my research points to is the concept of tunnel vision. And everybody's heard of tunnel vision before. But the reason why it's so important in aviation is because when you get tunnel vision, then you start to accept more risk than you even know that you're in because you're looking through a straw hole, and you may not even realize it. And what happens, and this rings true to my career, if you're in a position, especially as a single pilot, sometimes as a multi-crew, but multi-crew helps out a lot with this. Right. But as a single pilot, you may get into situations where you think, I'm pretty uncomfortable right now with what I'm doing. But you also may have some pressures, maybe another voice in your head, or the people that the customer or the dispatch.
Or a motivation back home,
whatever it is. Yeah, that tells you to not listen to that intuition and to push forward. And I think, and doesn't ring true on every single situation, but when something's going to happen, you're going to scare yourself. Once you don't listen to that intuition and you continue forward, you say, I'm going to continue even though I'm saying no in my head. That's when you begin the tunnel vision. Yeah. And it'll get narrower and narrower. And next thing you know, you don't have any situational awareness anymore. So the weather might actually be getting worse, way past your limit now. But since you already told yourself yes once, you're more likely to say yes again and again and again. And it's either you're going to scare yourself or you're going to die.
Yeah.
So in aviation.
Yeah. And to your point, I bet it's way harder as a single pilot when you're by yourself, because at least it was in the Marine Corps when we had on the 53s, if one person, whether it was the PIC, SIC, the crew chiefs, any of the crew members, if anyone was like not comfortable to fly, that was sitting on the actual flight plan, not cargo, that flight wasn't going, or like there's a serious consideration to stop. Whereas by yourself, you're argue with yourself, see how that goes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I've had it in the Gulf before. And I'm glad we're talking about it again, actually. So thanks for bringing it back up. Yeah. But I did have a time, where and with the knowledge that you have, but when you go to experience this kind of stuff and then it actually happens to you and you're like, whoa, that's what that was. Holy crap. And I was sitting there untying my helicopter. I felt uncomfortable, felt super uncomfortable. I'm sitting there and I'm untying my helicopter. And the entire time I'm untying my helicopter, I'm just looking at the machine and I'm just praying that I see something broken on it.
Like that excuse.
So that I can't go fly. And it was just I got my helicopter completely untied and I sat in the seat and I was like going through the checklist of starting. It took all the way up to that. It was like for whatever reason, that was like one of the hardest things in my career was to get out of that helicopter. And I just marched up over to the boss and I'm like, I'm not going.
Yeah.
And it's like so anticlimactic because the guy's just like, okay.
Because I'm sure he gets it too. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then like 4 other helicopters took off and all 4 of them came back because the weather was crap. So they turned around, know, but there might be a day just like that where they go and then they don't come back. And and it's fine, but they're like an envelope of comfortability is higher.
Accepting unnecessary risk, like some people
sure.
have higher thresholds.
Or accepting you just have like a better understanding of the risk. It's just experience and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
And that rings so true to my time in the Philippines, which was later on down the road after the power line construction in California. Mm-hmm. And I did EMS, actually working with you guys down there in Pine Ridge.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. And it helped out during the EMS times as well. But it certainly rang true doing, overwater work in the Philippines. One of my favorite stories, just figuring out where my life was going to go, starting off in high school, is when I was 16 years old, I got to go to my brother's airborne school graduation in Columbus, Georgia. Me and my brother, we didn't really get along in growing up under the same roof. We kind of fought constantly.
That's how it was with my brother too.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. And so when I went to his airborne school graduation, I haven't seen him for about a year. And then we go to that in Columbus and Fort Benning. And I got to watch him jump out of a C-130. And it kind of lit a little bit of a fire in me, like, man, I'm kind of proud of my brother. I'm feeling this weird thing. Like, what is this pride? I'm feeling pride for my brother who I've never got along with in my entire life, and it lit a little bit of a fire in me. I got to watch my dad pin his airborne wings on his chest.
That's super cool.
For his graduation, the blood wings. And that was kind of the moment where I decided, like, I'm going to pursue the military, follow in his footsteps in that way. So after his airborne school, he went to Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, and then he stepped off from there to combat medic,
Oh, wow. Was that graduation, were you guys at a big open field, and then they're like, all right, the planes are going to fly over, they're going to jump into this field, and what was that like?
They had a 2-part. Yep, they had the planes fly in, or they did their final jump, and then there was a more formal graduation,
like on the parade deck.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So yeah, it was just a moment. It lit a fire in me. It gave me a direction, of where I was going to go. So, and then throughout that whole process, as I went through airborne school, like basic training, AIT, and then I went to airborne school, and I just remember like running and doing all of the training, and I knew that my father's done the same thing. I knew that my brother did the same thing, and now I'm doing the same thing. Which was just, it was a really, my first goal, and I was accomplishing it.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was going to be able to do better things from there on out. So I graduated airborne school on my 19th birthday. It was June 22nd. So my dad pinned my airborne wings on my chest. And then from there, you have to grab all of your stuff and you have to march it up to the Ranger Assessment and Selection Program barracks. Mm-hmm. And on that very first, day on my birthday, they do the formation with the platoon after they smoked us, of course. Yeah. And doing all sorts. That was my life for the next 6 months.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
was that. But they pull 6 people out of the platoon and line them up, and then they all have to recite the Ranger Creed. And I was chosen as the 3rd spot in the stack to recite the Ranger Creed. So I had, and I'll try not to mess this up, but probably going to embarrass myself here. It's never shall I fail my comrades. I'll always keep myself mentally alert, physically strong, and morally straight, and I will shoulder more than my share of the task, whatever it may be, 100% and then some. And so at the end of it, the 6th stanza, then you scream, Rangers lead the way. Everybody, the whole platoon and the 6 of us standing there scream, Rangers lead the way. And I gave myself chills, it just started in my head and ran all the way down my body, and it was like it was the best thing that could have happened. Best birthday present that I could have got was graduating airborne school and then reciting the Ranger Creed in front of 113 people or whatever it was. So it was exciting. It was an exciting moment, and from that moment, I realized that it's true, that third stanza. What I said, if you want to be successful, you're gonna have to give 100% and then some. And I know the Marines, you guys have your creeds and all that stuff as well. And some of that stuff, it sticks to you, whether you remember the stanza or not.
I was going to say, Tyler, go ahead and recite that.
So that was an interesting moment.
Did your brother make it to your graduation? You went to his. Did he make it to yours? Or was
he was busy in his, wherever he was at that time. He might've been deployed. But he did surprise me at my Ranger Assessment Selection Program graduation. And during that, if there's any, current or prior Rangers that are in attendance, they're able to come up and put your patch on your shoulder, so you're...
So your dad got to pin you, and then your brother patched you?
My brother did patch me, yeah. Nice. And he surprised me at it. He didn't tell me that he was coming.
Super cool.
I always tell people... I joined 2 sacred brotherhoods on that day, so it felt pretty awesome.
It's a hell of a birthday gift.
I mean, we were the best. We were the best of friends ever since then. We still are, and kind of why I like to bring it up is because when I got out of the military, I immediately went to chase my goal to become a pilot. Brandon re-enlisted. Because he had his first child and, had a lot of bills to pay and stuff. So he re-enlisted. He stayed in, for a whole nother enlistment. But he saw me become a pilot. And it's really interesting because our roles kind of flipped there. And he decided that he wanted to become a pilot. I blazed the trail for him to follow.
Yeah, kind of vice versa. You at his graduation versus him to pilot.
Yep.
That's cool.
Exactly. It all started from watching him do his airborne graduation. Set me on my path, and then me becoming a pilot set him on his path.
That's super cool.
So now he's a successful pilot.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
And we're both in aviation. So
do you ever get to fly with him or anything like that?
Not yet, but it will happen.
That'll be fun.
I've had the chance to fly my grandparents before at the Grand Canyon. I've had the chance to fly some friends while I was a flight instructor. So all that stuff is really rewarding. And someday we're going to get in an aircraft together, and he does the fixed wing thing. So I think our goals is to keep it going in the family, and have it as something we can pass on, teach the younger generation to fly, and hopefully they can have long, rewarding careers doing it. So,
absolutely, that's cool.
Yeah. So it's one of the stories it's just such a true and awesome,
defining moment,
awesome experience. Yeah,
very defining, and at such a young age, 16. You get it in your head that you're going in the military before you've graduated high school. Your grades definitely reflect.
Yep. So anyway, so moving into after California and the power line patrol and power line construction. The next job after that, I took about a 4-month break from flying. Just to kind of slow down, it was all the stuff back to back all the way through California. And then I wanted to take a little break. So I got to spend a lot of time with my girlfriend at the time. We became engaged. And we decided to move back to South Dakota. And that's what led me to EMS and flying helicopter EMS. And so I did that out of Pine Ridge, South Dakota.
You were stationed or based down there?
Yep.
You weren't based in Rapid?
Exactly. So about an hour and a half drive, and I would do 14 days on, 14 days off, 7-day shifts, 7-night shifts. And got pretty, close with all the Minutemen EMS down there.
A lot of flight time coming out of Pine Ridge.
Yeah.
For those that don't know.
Man, and talk about I've known, the area. And coming from deployments and stuff, I mean, it's a little bit of a deployment in its own right,
Yeah.
So
I believe it.
Yep. And then just some of the stuff that you saw down there is a great experience, And helicopter EMS is just a beast in its own, But that crew resource management totally applies. What I learned from Columbia totally applied to working with clinicians in an aircraft, you know, so it makes a big difference because there's sometimes you get a little bit of a tension between the clinicians and the pilot. Right. Maybe they don't trust each other or whatever it is. If you have prior crew member experience, you're going to succeed in EMS a lot better than if you don't. If you go from single pilot straight to helicopter EMS, you might have a hard time with clinicians, you know?
Yeah.
And it all just comes down to, again, professional courtesy, mutual respect. So I did EMS for about a year and a half. Columbia called back because they were awarded the Philippines contract, working with the Marines out there. So it's MARSOC units and the 511 that were out there in Zamboanga, Philippines. So I answered the call and I went to go.
It's a good place to fly, Philippines.
Hang out with some jarheads and do the whole deal out there. And man, it was a really fun thing. There's one story that stands out that I just have to tell you guys because, again, you know what I was talking about? Like, you never thought you'd go back to Afghanistan. If you told yourself that, you'd say, no, there's no way that's going to happen. I never thought my entire life that I would ever attend a Marine Corps ball.
Oh, you got to go to one.
On the Marine Corps birthday.
Hell yeah. Yep. In the Philippines.
It was absolutely nuts, dude. I was just in shock. I'm like, what life choices has led me here?
That's awesome.
You know? So here we are. No shit. This is just the craziest day. So I'm on night Kazevac that night. So the aircraft that we had over there, we had two 107s, UH-46s basically. And we're doing kind of a similar job that we were doing in Afghanistan. It's mostly ass and trash, moving all the Marines to the different outposts and whatnot throughout all southern Mindanao and beyond. You know, basically the whole Philippines, realistically, when it comes down to it. But mostly the southern part of the Philippines, the ungoverned areas where the Marines were located. And our second job, so that would be one of our aircraft. Our second job is 24/7 Kazevac. And we're the Kazevac for the entire region. And we're capable of doing hoist, and we have clinicians on board. So the full deal, if anything were to happen. And you know, the MARSOC and the units out there, they're all advised and assist roles. So they weren't actually getting after it as far as they would tell us. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure they got pretty antsy, and maybe they did a little bit more than what they say, but that was their mission out there. So we were the primary Kazevac for the whole region. We'd respond to anything that happened, and we did respond to quite a few things, not involving U.S. service members, but the host nation forces. Get into some conflicts down there.
Dang.
So yeah, we got to see quite a bit of action out there. I wouldn't say quite a little bit of action out there. But
more than you probably expect in the Philippines.
Yeah. And there were some calls too. It's like, we weren't necessarily like a Medevac response, but every now and then we'd get a call to do a stroke patient or something like that, whether the Philippine Air Force, personnel or something. So anyway, it's the Marine Corps' birthday. Everybody's drinking. They invite the whole crew, including the night Kazevac crew, to go to the ball. They're like, oh yeah, come along. Nothing's going to happen. We're not doing any missions. So we're over there, and we're on the other side of the airfield. So I mean, it's about a 10-minute drive back to our aircraft, which is like, okay, we have an hour to get off the ground if a call comes in. Mm-hmm. Nobody's expecting a call. But so I'm on night Kazevac. I'm over there. Obviously, I'm not drinking because if I get a call, I get a call. I'm not going to take that risk, right? But in typical Marine fashion, everybody's pretty tuned up before the cake cutting ceremony.
I was going to say before the doors open.
Yeah, I'm sure there was quite a bit of that as well. Mm-hmm. But so here we are, and they just get done with the cake cutting ceremony, and a Kazevac drops. And we're like, we got to go, So we jump up and we go out to our aircraft. And I'm dressed like I have...
Do you have to take your dress off?
I have like a Hawaiian shirt, and I'm wearing like shorts. And, I'm not suited for, a Kazevac mission at this point. I'm just dressed in, ball attire, I guess is what you call it. So I don't care about that. I hop in the helicopter and I go grab my helmet, NVGs. We go. It's 10 p.m. or so, like 10:30. And we fly down 2 hours south, the furthest southern point of the Philippine archipelago, whatever you call that, island chain.
Yeah.
And so we land, and it's I think it was a stroke patient or something that we were going to do. But so we land, and there's the MARSOC unit there that's got the patient ready for us, and we shut down the helicopter. And I go to hop out. So typically I'll pull the engines back, and then I'll hop out as the blades wind down and go see what's going on, talk to the medics, talk to the personnel on the ground. So I'm in my Hawaiian shirt, shorts.
They're looking at you.
The helicopter is shutting down, and I jump out of the helicopter. We land in this grass field, and we have to fill with barrels of Jet A fuel down there to get back to where we're headed. So that's why we shut down. Otherwise, we could take them hot and then just go.
Fuel,
but we needed fuel out of barrels, so we do shut down. But anyway, so as the blades are winding down, I hop out of the helicopter, and I always kind of do a jump because the air stair door keeps you, especially if you're on a little bit uneven terrain, it's about a 3-foot drop. So I hop out, and my right foot goes straight into some sort of a gopher hole or something, and I hit the ground. I just fall flat on my face.
Damn.
And my ankle is busted, and I'm just laying there in pain. And so from the perspective of the guys, the Marines, it's the Marine Corps' birthday. And I'm hopping out in a Hawaiian shirt
and shorts,
eating shit onto the field. And they're like, I can only imagine in their heads, they're like, is this dude tuned up or what is going on here? I'm like, no, I just fell in a gopher hole, and my ankle was probably about the size of a planet.
And you still got to fly back.
Yeah, I had to fly back. It was almost a mass casualty situation.
Yeah, for real.
But I was able to hobble up and then fly back. And so anyways, that was just a really interesting. I enjoyed that time working with the Marines out there. Mm-hmm. And, I met some of the most awesome, commanders and stuff, and got to know them super well. And just a great group of people, Yeah. So yeah, there's a ton to go into in the Philippines, but if we can,
it's a little bit of wildfire.
Yeah.
And when you got into it, kind of who you working with, what you've gotten to kind of do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got my first experience on wildfire when I was with Columbia Helicopters still. So in 2021, when I did my type rating and I got back to the States, I had about 3 months in the States. I went out to California as a co-pilot, and I got to do a couple fires out in California and Oregon. Just the first initial exposure to it as a second in command as a co-pilot. Mm-hmm. So there were pretty significant fires, so it was a call when needed type contract. So there's like the exclusive use call when needed. Call when needed is a little bit lucrative for the companies, but if you're doing call when needed, you're always going to, really big fires.
Yeah.
If you're on an exclusive use, your aircraft is going to be assigned to a certain U.S. Forest Service region, and then you're probably going to be spending more time doing initial attack, and then a little bit on. Obviously, if there's a big fire in your region, you're going to be assigned to that, but also a lot of initial attacks. So that was my first experience. The second experience that I had with wildland fire was actually in Turkey. In 2023. So Columbia Helicopters. When I got back to Columbia to go to the Philippines, my very first assignment for 2 rotations, I went to Turkey to sit as a co-pilot on our Chinooks, our 234s. So I probably flew maybe about 30, 35 hours. It's a different world out there in Turkey.
What are you flying? When you're on the Chinook, are you doing cargo? Are you doing bucket drops? What are you guys doing?
Bucket drops.
Nice.
Yep. Exclusively bucket drops.
Hell yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So again, that was as a co-pilot, still not type rated in the 234-47. But again, just a good experience to see that side of aviation, So Turkey was interesting because you had like Ukrainian pilots and Australians out there, and nobody really talked to each other very well. We had to have an interpreter sit in the jump seat of the Chinook to coordinate with the their version of the Forest Service that would be flying overhead and directing the drops and whatnot. It was a pretty much chaotic mess the entire time. So as a co-pilot out there, you're just focusing on not hitting anybody else, because there's planes flying in from everywhere. Nobody knows where they're coming from. It's such a mess in comparison to the United States. The United States has a pretty good system with the TFRs that they have, temporary flight restrictions,
ADSB.
and just the initial or air attack platforms that are clearing people in and out, and the hell attack, or you would call them Helco or Heli Command. That's basically going to be managing just the helicopter platforms, maybe in one section of the fire.
Yeah.
So it's very much more structured and safer in the United States. That's one thing that I'm super appreciative of. Doing that job, and turkey juice isn't really worth the squeeze, I would say, for myself, just because it is pretty chaotic. I did meet good people. There were good Terps. There were good, Turkish counterparts that were super friendly people.
Yeah.
But the culture is sometimes a little bit different.
Very different way of living over there.
A little more authoritarian, style.
Yep.
So people were always just scared for their skin. But then you got the older guys who didn't really care as much, so they were a little bit more relaxed. So that was the second experience with aerial firefighting. And then it wasn't until this year in Canada, before I left Columbia Helicopters, I was sent up to do some pilot and command fire suppression in the 107. So I got to do bucket work and got to experience my really first go, cutting my teeth, doing buckets and working on wildland fires.
Nice.
It was a great place to do it because there were lakes everywhere, and there was virtually never ground personnel, hot shots on our targets.
Thick terrain. There's a lot up there for people to be.
Yep. So I got to go and make a lot of mistakes up there.
Good. Yeah, but a great place to do it.
Without the repercussions.
Yeah, great place to do it.
Of ground personnel. But so that was my real go. And then I got hired with Billings Flying Service basically halfway through this fire season. And now I'm hired with them as pilot in command under supervision. So it's basically just training and learning until I can get my type rating done in the aircraft, and then I will be full-blown PIC flying. And we have mostly tanked aircraft, so that's our primary platform. It's really a superior form of fire suppression, but it depends on your region. The mountainous areas, you need the buckets.
Yeah.
But if you have the ability, the tank ships are highly capable.
Are they safer too? There's a lot of helicopter incidents every year, mostly around bucket drops, but.
Well, bucket drops, are a little bit more precise, so it requires a little bit higher level. But they are absolutely necessary if you get into, if you have a small dip site, you need the bucket work. So it's a highly needed asset for aerial firefighting, and it will continue. Now it's getting a little bit smaller. A lot of companies are going towards tank ships just because of that notion, right, of safety. There are incidences with buckets, obviously, and it has to do with the level of precision that comes with the buckets. But I would say absolutely necessary. It's what I would prefer to do because it is the challenge. It's funner, you have to be a little bit more precise with it. But at the same time, being newer to these operations, I know that the tank ships are highly capable assets, and a lot of people would argue superior assets for firefighting in general. I would say when it comes to aerial firefighting, the things that I've learned so far, because I've been in it for a little bit of a shorter amount of time, I spend a lot of my time studying the aircraft so I can become typed in it. But at the same time, I need to know the full picture of aerial firefighting. So when you're doing an initial attack on an exclusive use contract, it's like responding to an EMS call in a lot of ways, right? So you have to get off, you get your coordinates, you head out, you get your frequencies, who you're going to be talking to. If you're going to be talking to anybody at all, typically there's going to be at least a ground contact. You have to know how to work with these guys. Sometimes they're going to be right there on the fire. They're going to be strobing you. They're going to be telling you where to drop, and then hopefully going to be getting out of the way. we have to take that into serious consideration. It's not necessarily so much for the water that's being dropped out of the platform. Now, if you're holding into a hover and you drop directly onto somebody from 200 feet down, you might kill the guy.
Yeah, it's a lot of weight.
There's no doubt about it. But I would say the most hazardous thing outside of just that, because typically you're going to be a little bit moving, dynamic. Everybody's stood under a waterfall before.
Yeah.
Not going to die necessarily all the time. But it's the branches.
Trees coming down.
Yep. So that's the thing that for the ground guys, they need to be highly, concerned about, is if you're dropping these heavy, you might be dropping 2,500 gallons of water, at a time. That's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
So what I've learned at this point is just using that ground coordination and talking and making sure that you know what they're looking for and if they're clearing out enough that you feel comfortable with, because something like that, it just takes one mishap, one little accident. Maybe you're a rotor width off the target without actually knowing that you are. Yeah. You could end up dropping onto some people. So that's one of our primary concerns.
That's super big.
Yep. And then, other than that, it's you have to work with your crew. Again, it's all the stuff that we talked about before, and the helicopter managers with the U.S. Forest Service. You have to have a good rapport with these guys, and you have to be a good person to work with. As a team, everybody's on a team. We're all trying to do the same thing, which is put out fire. Yeah. So there's issues if egos get too involved, or if just communication gaps. Yeah. They're going to cause some issues.
Big problems.
Aerial firefighting is something that I look forward into getting into and developing. That's kind of one of my final goals as a professional helicopter pilot, is to be really not only doing it, but doing it efficiently, doing it safely, teaching the next generation every single step of my career. If I haven't done it well and taught it to somebody else, I haven't actually accomplished what I'm trying to do. So that's where I'm at right now. That's what I want to get to.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not going to be flying forever.
Nope.
But if I can get to my goals, and pass it on, then that's what I want to do with aerial firefighting.
Nice.
Do you have anything to pass on to our listeners who are firefighters who can work better with you in the air while they're on the ground? Any tips for them?
I wouldn't be able to really say without having been the PIC doing it intimately with them in that regard. But any situational awareness is always helpful. So a lot of guys, it's a little bit of a struggle if you have saws running and you're on the radio and you're trying to talk to a Chinook. So you can't hear that Chinook until they're pretty much right over your head. And then when they get over your head, the engines are loud enough to where you cannot no longer hear us on the radio. So it creates a lot of issues. And I hope that they come out with some technology that can better be usable for the communication. If you're working with saws, you might need to step away from the saw. Yeah. That way you can get on the horn with us before we're over the target, right? Because then we're not going to know where we're going. I did get to see a little bit of NVG firefighting with Billings as well.
Nice.
Just from the jump seat, I got to witness it. I'll most likely be getting trained up to do NVG firefighting. It's an amazing tool. I know a lot of helicopter pilots don't really like the idea of NVG firefighting. It's just an added layer of hazard. Yeah. But the amazing thing is, and I've done a lot of NVG flying, about 250 hours of it. When you're on a fire and you're using NVGs, the fire shows you exactly where it is, even if you have a big canopy and whatnot.
It burns right through.
You can see, straight through that with the infrared. And not only that, but the fire provides so much illumination to all the terrain that's around you. You may not be able to see wires, but you have to recon. You have to know where those wires are before you go onto those missions. Okay. In the Forest Service, in CAL FIRE, they take all that stuff super seriously. Yeah. So then they're not going to send you out there. The goal is to not be sent out there without reconning and knowing where all of those hazards are before you do it. So NVG firefighting is a very useful thing. A lot of firefighters out there in CAL FIRE call it the the overtime killer.
The overtime killer.
Yeah, we're out there and we're doing some serious work at night.
Yeah,
and it'll make the difference between a fire that lasts 3 weeks or a fire that lasts 2 days.
Absolutely.
Not sure how I feel about that, but
no, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, we're definitely gonna have you back on.
Yeah.
We didn't cover any of your deployments. We didn't cover a lot. The Philippines, I want to hear more about.
Absolutely.
Just life. It seemed like you had a blast there. So I think we could definitely do this again.
We'll have you back and keep track through your progression in fire and things you learn. And thanks for doing this. This is super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll have to fill in all the holes at some point. There's a lot of stuff to go over, and even just talking to you guys, it's like things coming up and big lessons and big things that I learned. I'm like, wow, I haven't thought about that in years. So
yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah.